Welcome to the fourth video in our Creating a Balek Module series. In the last video, we saw how to use the Twitter API communicator to create a Twitter API service and use the input from our module interface to look up Twitter user information. In this video, we are going to cover how to add a database controller in order to save and retrieve our Twitter API results. But first, let's go over some changes I made to the repository since the end of the last video. I have saved this commit as Start of Fourth Video UI Changes and referenced a link in the summary of the video. I will also reference the changes we commit at the end of the video. Most of the changes I made are variations of things I covered in previous videos. The changes include 8 modified files and 7 new ones. Just a brief overview before we cover the database controller. You may recall the onLogin success method of the login interface from the first video. We have updated this function to automatically load the Twitter module or switch to an instance that has already been loaded. We added some instance, interface, and resource files. We also updated our menu to display the user lookup service state, like room left in queue and service status. We now pass the Twitter API results to the contact list through the interface state. The user lookup service queue has been modified for this demonstration to more easily see it in action. Logging into our instance with these changes, we see the service status in the added doc button in our menu. The menu doc status is updated in the interface state, so when we log out and back in, the menu is how we left it. We can also see, because we modified the cooldown and quantity of the queue, if we import our file with a few users, the service will continue working and updating the states even if we are not logged in. The current settings allow for 5 requests from the user lookup API every 5 seconds. We can see the requests in queue matching this rate as we reload. We also receive the service results through the state on interface reload. But if we reload our instance, all of the responses that are stored in our state disappear. So let's see how to save them to the Mongo database when we receive them. First, we want to make our module's main database connection by extending the base controller into a database.js file, which we will put in our Twitter module folder. The object will be loaded with the module by the module manager. It will maintain a connection to the database that the different instances and controllers of the module can share. We can set the name of the database used by modifying the database member of the controller. The main database controller is imported into our modules.js file, where we now create and connect to database. This will automatically connect to the Mongo database configured in the settings of the config.json file. The same config.json file that we used in the first video to set the default module loaded on startup. We can now create a contacts.js file in the database directory of our contacts module. This will utilize our module database controller by becoming our Twitter contacts database controller. The name of the collection is set in the header of the controller as the collection member. In our create contacts collection function, called from the constructor of the controller, we create our collection if it does not exist. After creating our collection, we configure a unique index for the Twitter ID and Twitter username entries. There are also getUserContacts and newContact function members in our contacts controller. We create new contacts using newContact and retrieve them with getUserContacts. Balek currently uses the MongoDB NPM to create the shared database connection. You should be able to reference the MongoDB documentation to create your own functions and build your Balek modules. Now that we have our controller, we can import it into our module instance. We could consolidate our Twitter API and database calls into one controller, but for the sake of this demonstration, we will just add on to our main instance. After declaring our Twitter contacts database in the header of our instance, we create it and run our load contacts from database instance function. This is one of 2 database functions we have created for our instance. The other being the save contact to database function, which both do as their names would suggest by utilizing the database controller. For now, we just load the database entries directly into the contacts list.interface state. We now check the contact list interface state before requesting a user from the Twitter API in our import contacts function. and in the onTwitter user lookup data state change function, which updates with the Twitter API service, we save contact to database. With these changes in place, we can see that our Twitter API results are persisting between instance reloads, and if we try to look up a user that is already in the database, we skip sending it to the Twitter API service. Now that we have our service and database controller set up, adding new API endpoints and building our database should be a pretty straightforward process. Let's go ahead and commit these changes as end of fourth video database controller. There are a lot of options available through the Twitter API. I think I might check out the followers list endpoint next. Before building, I should do a little refactoring by consolidating my Twitter API and database calls and preparing for multiple contact lists. This is the end of our Twitter Contacts Balek module series. I will be making more commits to the repository if you want to follow along with the module progress past this point. Please post your comments and questions below, and thanks for watching.